Tonight, we are starting a new series called Relationships. All right? So the point of this, perfect, thank you. The point of this is to change perspectives or shift perspectives on romance. So now some of you may have never been in a romantic relationship, but we've all been affected by it. You might see Bree and myself, and you might be like, oh, they're so cute. Or you might be like, man, Josh lost husband points tonight more than any other night, because that's something that you guys mention to me all the time, how I lose husband points. You might see things on TV. You might see things on movies that might be toxic relationships or wholesome relationships. You might be in a romantic relationship right now or not. You might have seen a friend enter into one and then your friendship changed, or all these different things. So everyone has been affected by romantic relationships. But the question I want to ask you tonight is, who has ever seen a Hallmark movie? Raise your hand if you've ever seen a Hallmark movie. So, second question, who can give me just kind of a basic plot summary of your typical Hallmark movie? Hudson. All right. So for me, the typical Hallmark movie looks like a big city girl who cares about finances in her company and things like that, goes to the country for some family thing, and she meets a good old country boy who teaches her the meaning of Christmas. They have a fight, and then she sees the errors of her way and get back together, and then they fall in love. And everyone say it with me, live happily ever after. It's incorporated in our fairy tales, and it's incorporated in our movies. It's incorporated in all the different stories that we tell each other, and all of that they live happily ever after. And so we assume that the main point or the reason that this whole thing happened was so that they could be happy. And so the culture tells us that we should seek happiness. But not just in our relationships, but in anything that we get, anything that we want to receive, anything that we desire, we think will grant us happiness. But let me ask a question. Go ahead and everyone raise your hands real quick. Lower your hand if you no longer use the Christmas gift that you got at Christmas this past year. Okay, everyone's hand's pretty much still up. Okay, what about the Christmas gift from last year? From 2019? Okay, what about 2 years ago? 5 years ago? 10 years ago? Okay, Aubrey's got to be, she's special. So I'm curious, what is the gift?
10 years ago one?
Yeah.
It's a blanket.
Okay, I thought it was going to be like an animal, because that I understand. And then Elizabeth, what's yours? Shh. Okay, all right, so you still have it, but do you play with it like you used to? Okay, all right, she's not answering that question. But the point is, we see that these things that we've asked for, that we really wanted for Christmas, that we thought would give us happiness, did give us happiness for a short time, but that happiness faded away and we no longer use it or find use for it. Hardly any of us use the thing that we asked for whenever we were 5, I would assume, right? So, which some of you aren't even 10 years older than 5. So, yeah, I'm 25. So anyway, a Nintendo. There you go. So, but the thing is, so we're told in culture to shoot for this thing, that everything we should do should be to give us happiness. And can anyone tell me what this is? I know I already said it. Skee ball. So what's the point of skee ball? Okay, so you got the top left and the top right. So those give you the most points, right? And then these give you, this one gives you the least amount, a little bit more, but these are the most, right? Yeah, it's like 10,000, whereas this one's maybe 100 or something. And so, what's the point of playing skee ball? To get as many points, and then what happens if you get a lot of points? You get a lot of tickets, and then if you save up a lot of tickets, you get a what? You get a flog gun? A vlog gun? A lava lamp. Okay, we're going to say lava lamp. Okay, a giant. So picture in your head the biggest prize that you've ever saved up for or ever wanted to save up for. Okay? So, and you have to play skee ball to get there. All right? So, in all reality, happiness isn't our goal or shouldn't be our goal, but it's something that we reach for, it's something that we shoot for, and so we pick things that make us happy. So So things that make us happy, and it's the same way in relationships. We get into relationships because we expect that they'll make us happy. But happiness only gets you like 100 points because it's so short-lived. It's this temporary thing. Or maybe you get into a relationship because the person looks good. Like, man, that person's really hot. That person's really attractive, really cute. Daniel's pointing to himself and, do what you will with that information. So, but looks, guess what? Looks go away. You get old, you get wrinkly, you get fragile. Like you can hardly get out of bed at the age of 25. No, I that's what I'm saying. I can hardly get out of bed sometimes, and I'm only 25. Like all that type of stuff. You might, you might get into a relationship because someone is funny. Like whose humor is important to them, right? So I know you guys think I'm funny all the time, but you can ask Bree. There's at least once a year where I'm not funny. Okay, all right. So it's a temporary thing that's not everlasting. It's not eternal. So we got funny, we got looks, we got happy. What's something else that's like people jump into relationships for?
They're
Caring. Okay, that's a good one that I'm not going to use for right now. So thank you for breaking the mold. Elijah. Okay, talented. So maybe this person has talent. Maybe they're really good at making you happy. Maybe they look good. Maybe they're funny. Maybe they're talented. All these things aren't bad, but in all reality, what we're shooting for, these are all either temporary or there's something that's not going to last the entire time. They're not always going to be talented at everything. They're not always going to be funny. They're not always going to look good. Or look their best. Like if you get married to them, hang on, never mind, sorry. I was going to make a joke from your perspective, but if I made a joke, then, and I'm pointing to my wife if you're watching afterwards, we are posting messages online now, just so you know. And they're not always going to make you happy. But if this ends up being your goal, if this is your prize instead of just something that earns you points, if this is your goal, then what happens whenever that goal is not happening in your relationship, if you're not happy in that relationship? If that person no longer looks their best, if that person isn't as funny as he used to because he got tired of some of their jokes, like what ends up happening? The truth is, all these things that we learn from, that we should pursue relationships because this person's this or this person's that, all these things that we learn from society and culture and movies and all these things, they're all temporary. And they're all going to leave you with this fleeting feeling that you're basing your relationship off, do they make me happy? And that's going to be a disaster. That's going to be a recipe for disaster. One, because you're basing an entire relationship, something that's going to deeply influence you, depending on how close you allow them to get, deeply influence you off of a temporary feeling. Or two, or in addition to, I should say, you're basing that relationship off of what someone else can give you, and guess what? That person's just as messed up as you are. Who would raise your hand and say you're messed up? Like, I'm messed up, right? And so relationships shouldn't be based off these temporary feelings or these temporary goals, and they shouldn't be based off what the other person can give me. That's not the purpose of a romantic relationship or really any relationship. It's not Bree's responsibility to make me happy. It's not my responsibility to make her happy, contrary to what you may believe. So what are these things, these top two, that get you like 10,000 points? That if you keep seeking, if you keep pushing, and you keep hitting those goals, what are the things that will earn you that big prize? And the big prize that we all want, and we can all agree to this, is fulfillment in life. That we can go through life, and at any point we can be like, I am satisfied. I have joy. I'm living the life I want to live. I'm in the relationship that I want to be in. This relationship looks like and makes me feel fulfilled and whole. What does that look like? And so I want to read from Ephesians 5, 21 through 33, and it's going to be up on the screen. And this is talking about marriage and instructions for the Christian household, but it's the basis for any romantic relationship moving forward. Whether you're interested or not, I encourage you to really know this passage. It says in verse 21, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit to your husbands, or to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands and everything. And you might be like, well, why is he just talking about wives? Well, the thing is, he also gives instructions to husbands, and let me tell you, the instructions to husbands is like twice as long as the instructions to wives. So it balances out in a lot of ways, and we're going to talk about it and break it down. But verse 25 says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with the water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own body. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and a mother be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. And verse 33 is going to be your scripture to memorize for tribe points, but it's, however, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Now, let me ask you a very important question to start with breaking this down. How many times is happiness mentioned there? How many times is look or attractiveness? Humor, talent, any of that? No? Right? And how many times does it say, in order to be a Christ-like household, you should worry about what you get from that person? Never. Instead, it tells us what we should do, and it's not based off the other person. It's based off our love for them, and our love for them isn't based off even ourselves. It's based off the love that Christ has for the church. And so you see, those in the church are meant to prepare themselves and seek Christ-likeness to serve the community and act out of selflessness, just as wives are called to serve and to care and act out of selflessness for their husbands and their family. And Christ dedicated his life to serving the community and the church. He led them to leading successful and victorious lives, maybe not the way that culture says, but in God's eyes to be successful. And not only did he instruct them on how to, but he empowered them to follow through with those goals. In the same way, husbands are meant to lead and guide their family, lead and guide their wives, to be the best that they can be, to seek after Christ, just as the church seeks after Christ. And so in all reality, both roles are just two sides of the same coin, that we're supposed to care and love for each other and empower each other and make sure that that person is living their best life by challenging them and helping them grow, whether you're a guy or a girl. It doesn't matter. And so these 10,000 point, the ones that will actually get you fulfillment, isn't happiness or anything of the sort. It's helping the other person pursue a relationship with Christ. It's helping the other person grow in the gifts that God has placed in them. And so before we break up into tribes, I just want to ask this one question. If you are in a relationship or you're considering being in one, ask yourself, are both you and the other person willing to sacrifice so that they can grow? And not just in a standard means, not just in a, oh yeah, I want them to grow, I want them to be good, but you're willing to give up time and energy. Are you at a place in your life that you should be doing that? Or do you have other things that you should be focusing on to help grow yourself? And so we're going to be talking about what does a relationship look like once you're actually in one, and what should you watch out for, and how to help each other grow. But if neither person in the relationship is growing, then I begin to question what's the health of the relationship actually like. Sure, they might be funny. Sure, they might make you happy from time to time. But are they empowering you to be the best that you can be, and are you empowering them to be the best that they can be? Are you challenging them? Are you driving them to Christ, or are they distracting you from Christ? Those are the questions that we have to answer before we determine if we're ready to be in a romantic relationship.